Good. All right. Well, I would like to welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the the May State Interoperable Emergency Communication Board meeting, State of New York. And I'd like to welcome, we have a new board member with us today. We have Director Michael Soretto from Rowe County Emergency Communications, City of Rochester. And we're familiar with
Brett, we lost sound on the computer.
These start with Brett Kellis, Chair.
here.
Mark Balistreri, designee for New York State Dishes Acting Commissioner Jackie Bray.
Here.
Timothy Morris, designee for New York State Police Superintendent.
Here.
David Kozlowski, designee for New York State Chief Information Officer.
Present.
Chief Jason Sellers, designee for New York State Division of Military and Naval Affairs.
Present.
Thank you. Bob Terry, designee for New York State Department of Transportation. Todd Murray, designee for New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services.
Present.
Thank you. Ryan Greenberg, designee for New York State Department of Health. Richard Anderson. Brian LaFleur.
Present.
Kimberly Beatty. Brendan Casey.
Here.
Michael Volk. Ellen Turner.
Here.
Anthony Tripp.
On the computer here.
Juan Figueroa.
Here.
And Michael Soretto.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. I'd like to entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes as distributed from our last meeting.
So moved.
By Brian LaFleur. Do we have a second? Second. By the sheriff. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Minutes are approved. Okay, now we need to entertain a motion for the adoption of today's agenda. It's in front of you.
I'll move that, Brett.
We had a motion first from Sir Terry. Who is it? Do we have a second?
I'll second that, Brett. Anthony Tripp.
Okay, second by Anthony Tripp. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay. With the agenda and the minutes are approved, we'll move on to standing committee reports. Start out with Board Member Ellen Turner, who is the chair of the 911 Advisory.
We presented the modified plan for the updated standards back in February. It's been turned over to Mr. Callahan and Brett. And basically is a work in progress right now. It has not been able to be approved yet, but it is in progress.
Anything else? Okay. Any questions for Mr. Turner? Okay, we'll move on to next generation 911 working group report for me. And with that, see, we had a go to the next slide. We're going to have a presentation of Jerry Engstrom from GIS Program Office. I didn't see Jerry here, so we'll move on through the agenda. If he appears fine, but I can tell you just short and brief. The GIS Subcommittee of the working group has been working tirelessly throughout the pandemic. They've still been meeting virtually for months. That group is probably 15 to 20 strong. They've got a lot of GIS professionals from across the state representing a number of counties in the city of New York. The city of New York has an active Next Gen 911 implementation project in place with, they have the contractors there, GeoCom, it's notable best primary contractors. So the GeoCom is doing a lot of the GIS work for New York City. So there's a lot of good information and so on being brought into this group that's beneficial and will benefit the entire state program as we move forward with Next Gen in the state. I'd like to give a lot of credit to the ITS GIS program, Jerry and Roger and the rest of the team down there. Really done a heck of a job in organizing this and moving us forward so that we're prepared. I've seen across the Next Gen projects across the country, a lot of the states, they get everything all implemented in SENet and the service and all this, and then they have to do excuse me, do legacy routing until they can get the GIS platform up in order built for PSAP boundaries and all that that would make intelligent routing and 911 calls. So we're going to be ahead of that curve and we're going to be prepared for that. The time comes. So big kudos to them, and I'll let the rest wait until they are here present to show. But Jerry, just one last thing, Jerry from our ITS GIS program office and Chris Cody from New York City, who now I believe that they have a new name, the Mayor's Office of Technology, and they co-chair this group and have done so since its inception here. And thank you to them as well for their leadership. So that's where we go with that. Any questions? Okay, next group is the SIEC group. Jay Copstein.
Good morning. All right, we're going to do it short and sweet. SAFECOM published a document on the derechos out in the Midwest and what those vulnerabilities are. I think we ought to look at it. The Nashville paper should be out shortly. We were briefed on that last year. Third-party dependencies document is out. I think we ought to look at that because we are dependent upon third parties in our internet connections, and in some case, their subcontractors. There's an obstruction document out. It's more applicable in rural areas or suburban areas, if you will, when construction is going on and they put up a tower, like a wall tower to aid in construction, and that interferes with microwaves. ECD is working on an in-building communications project utilizing existing Wi-Fi that's in the buildings. Many states have requested that we, in addition to SOPs, use SOGs, which will now appear in SAFECOM documents In some states, a procedure must be followed to the letter, where a guideline gives you some flexibility and there's been litigation on it. There's a document out on cyber incident response, and it's rapid response to an incident involving cyber. We have to look at unmanned aerial systems again. They're becoming more and more in use, and they're getting a little bit cluttering under some circumstances. And last but not least, the current administration in Washington is looking to use the Hatch Act locally. Here in New York State, we've been cited once, but the warning is out there and the penalties are significant. For example, if you're using federal money to hire or support employees, the penalty for a Hatch Act violation is twice the annual amount of the grant for 2 years. It's a significant penalty. Other penalties can involve the suspension of federal grants. So my advice is stay away from supporting candidates on either grant-supported vehicles or on any vehicles or the like if you're using grant funding for anything within your community. That's it. Back to you, Brett.
Thank you, Jay. Any questions for Jay Cutstein, SIEC Chair?
That, Jay, what you just spoke about, is that something on a particular local level or?
On the Hatch Act,
Yeah, I mean, are you referring to somebody, a local government or state law?
yes, we had one sheriff that was cited but not penalized. But the warning is out there. We haven't had this type of enforcement in the past, but it's apparently something that the administration is looking at. So there was one sheriff who was formally cited but not penalized. It was basically a warning, but it was, again, a documented warning.
What did he have? A campaign poster on a sheriff's vehicle or what? That's essentially what it was?
Yeah, what were the specifics?
It was a support Trump flag on
Oh,
the sheriff's office boat.
I heard about that.
That would trigger this administration.
But it's something that we have to be concerned of because you have agencies that fly banners from their vehicles. And we've had our official warning. We don't want to wind up losing significant dollars because of it.
Thank you for that clarification, Jay. Any other questions? Okay. All right, moving on. What's our next report? Ready?
Take it to me.
Oh, you're up, Mark.
I'm gonna stand up here just because I talk with my hands and I'll probably hit Brett a couple times, so I don't want to do that. I just want to give you an update on our COMU program. I always like to start with these two slides. I put them in every presentation because some people haven't seen it and they need to know that the communications unit is why we call it COMU. But there's 7 actual positions that fall under the COMU. COML, COMT, INCM, RADO, AUXCOM, INTD, and ITSL. The org chart kind of looks like this. Pretty much, regardless of where you are up here, from here down is how we're setting up our program to run in the state so that we cover all the positions. You may see the AUXCOM work more with the COMT. We talked about that in our recent ComEx. There's discussion about having communications unit as a command line in ICS, but that's not really going anywhere. Some charts have it under logistics. Some charts have it under the service unit. But what I tell our students in classes is it doesn't matter. We're just concerned with this down. We don't care who we report to. So I did a couple charts and I like showing these as we go along because it kind of gives you a history of where we are with credential folks and also where we are with our training program. So this chart, if I can get this out of the way or not. This chart basically shows you, since we started at the end of 2017 to build the program, where we are with credentialed folks. Obviously in 2020, COVID hit and we hit a big barrier for training and credentialed folks. But right now we stand at 154 folks when we had one at the end of 2017. So our program is moving along as we were hoping it would. And a lot of this is thanks to the folks out in the county and our partners out there working with us and helping us with this program. This chart shows you how our training is progressing. We originally started with a 5-year plan, and again, COVID in 2020 kind of threw a dart in that. So right now, we're getting back on track with our program, and we're hoping to have somewhere between 150, maybe 200 trainees a year. This year, we're scheduling around 228. We started with about 450 trainees. At the end of this year will be another 540. So we'll have over 1,000 trained personnel out there working on getting that credential. So again, we're in good shape. Thanks to the counties and our staff here working with us. So as far as courses, 1 sec.
You gotta flip this room. They gotta use it in an hour.
Or maybe vacuum after this report. As far as the program building it, we have 5 TAs a year that requests that we put into the feds for courses. Kind of hard to build a program with 7 positions and only 5 requests a year. So right off the bat, we work to develop our own trainers in New York State. We currently have 12 ComEls trainers, 8 ComT trainers, and 5 AUXCOM trainers. So we can teach 3 out of the 7 courses. We're hopeful that by the end of this year, we can also teach INTD and RADO, which means 5 out of the 7 we can teach. And that'll greatly enhance our ability to build this program quicker. So this is kind of what we had going this year so far, the first half of the year. We were able to complete all these courses. We just had a ComEx last week in Oriskany at the SPTC. We had 40 people participating and we were able to get 23 task books signed off. So there's potentially about 23 people out there that are close to getting credentialed. So it was a big success last week. Thanks to Brian, who was part of that. Who else in here was part of it? Joanne. That's about it. Maybe some people on the phone, but we've really been working hard to try and get people credentialed and get their task book signed off. This is what the rest of the year looks like. We have an INCM course scheduled for next month, ComT course in July, a RADO in July, INTD in August, AUXCOM in August, ITSL, which this is a new course that they offered. It's basically your IT, your technical folks out there, computer folks. They revamped the course and now they have a new offering. So we put in for that to see what that's all about. Another ComEl in September. On AUXCOM Train the Trainer in October, our goal there is to try and increase our AUXCOM instructor pool. We have a ComT course in November. And then in December, we started this last year. It worked out really well. We get all our instructors together for 2 days and we go through what we did good this year, what we need to change, and we plan the following, or the next year that we're gonna, what we're gonna do the next year. If you have any folks out there that want to take any of the courses, have them go into LMS and register 90 days before the start date. If you want to take a picture of that, that's the portal. It's also a good idea for folks to go in there and check their information, make sure their current email address is correct and their primary phone numbers are correct. Because basically this database was created from all the training databases out there, DCJS, SPTC, OEM, OFPC, us. So whatever your default email may not be the one you want. So yes, Sheriff.
Where are these courses held at? Are they virtually or are they regional?
These are all at the SPTC. Yep. So encourage your folks as well as you to get in there and check your information out, make sure it's correct, so that when you do register for something, it goes to the right email address. We also did request, I don't want to go too far into this, but we have a nice tick fog that's a companion document to the national NIFOG, which our communications folks use out there. We created our own, and what we're requesting this year is to turn that into an application that you could use on your phone or your tablet. Right now, the NIFOG is an application, so it'd be nice to have both of them out there. They also have the AUX5 as an application as well, which is another great tool for our COMU folks. We also have been pushing CHASM. It's a great database. I won't go too far into it, but if you've heard of it or you want to know more about it, we do offer training sessions through WebEx. Coming up in September and November, those are the dates for those next two. Just send me an email and I'll send you the invite for the WebEx. There was a new refresh they put out. It's a lot more user-friendly and there's a lot of great information as long as people keep it up. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Hey, you're here for me if you're a few reports now. The Public Safety Broadband User Group. So during the April late season snowstorm, we received a New York response request for assistance with communications for Broome County, the eastern edge of Broome County, which is Village of Deposit, which actually falls halfway in Delaware County. The village line was, or the county line was right up the center of the fire station in the village itself. Just a point of interest, but the OIC team responded and brought some vehicles, and the purpose was to reestablish communications to the EOC in the Village of Deposit. They had a lot of damage there, and without power and cell service and other things were compromised. They learned there's a partial outage of the FirstNet due to the cell sites being down, some of the AT&T sites. And that affected the emergency operations of the fire department in the community. We requested a FirstNet deployable, SATCOL. Less than 8 hours later, that it was on the air in the village and providing services and restored that wireless capability in the village. It's worth repeating, worth reporting. I mean, it shows the capabilities we now have with the deployables.
Where's it being deployed from?
I think there's two in New York and there's two, I know New Jersey has some. They're all, it's up to them where they deploy them, but I can't really tell you the exact locations, Mike, but I'll get that information for you. I'm not sure exactly where it came. I'm thinking it came from, I'm not sure. Excuse me. I think that's it for that. Any questions? All right, we'll move on to the channel naming and use working group. And Matt, by the way, is on vacation this week, and the board meeting got rescheduled. Changing vacation, I hope. So, doing Matt's reports, that's the reason. So, the IO channels. As we enter the season, Matt wanted to remind everybody, sure that the interoperability heaters are not left on. They should be turned off whenever the you don't have an incident using them. If you do have an incident, the Connecticut listserv should be notified that you're on the air, and it should be notified when you're going off the air. That listserv serves this whole region of the Northeast, and thanks to Connecticut. It's a good way that everybody knows what ones are being used and not. This is an ongoing problem, and it seems almost continuous. We have these things being left on. So I ask you to please pay attention to that, go out, talk to the agencies in your area and your footprint. Just advise them of this. It can interfere with important communications during incidents or planned events.
Brett, is there a way in the future where somebody turns it on, would automatically trigger a signal to, say, your office? Or
We've identified a number of them. I remember one time I was down at Mount Utsey. They're doing service on a tower down there in Delaware County. And he started monitoring from the top of the mountain. That we just turned on my portable and we'd see if we could hear any of them. We could hear repeaters. You could hear the squelch, the repeater just running. So off the call signals every 30 minutes or so. And we were able to actually map. He had no problem. It was, he read the Morse code, and what I did was recorded it, sent it to Matt. He read the code and told me who it was, and we notified that county that they needed to turn that off. Pay attention to that. So that's the easy way of finding them. We've had to find them through directional systems from vehicles. We've had for hours just to actually search what is keyed up, and that's if they don't have the automatic call sign. There's FCC rules on that. That has to be done and when not. But that would help, to your point, if that was on all these channels. Certainly, I sit right here and say I encourage people to do that if possible. That way we at least know who to call.
some organizations don't know that theirs is on. If they have a power bump, power goes out, comes back on. Many of these repeaters are designed to come up in the repeat mode. So there may have been a bump in the power at a tower site somewhere. The people in the dispatch center don't know that that's on. And hence we're trying to work with the vendors and everything, make sure these units get reprogrammed so that they don't come up in the repeat mode. So I couldn't tell you the repeat time, how often, but check it out.
I heard it. I've always been told, but I don't want to. It's like
Some are automatic, some are
transmit
every time the repeater is used, when it goes down, it sends a message at the end of its transmission. I'm not sure right off the top of my head.
Okay, let's see. Okay, Citizens Alerting Committee. They've been pretty. Says I'm also reporting for Matt Delaney in this one. IPAWS proficiency testing. For the entities that have a COG with FEMA, COG is your notification, first layer of notification in the emergency broadcast. And this is the COG is also an agreement, a certificate of agreement with FEMA, and that allows an agency to submit alerts into IPAWS. IPAWS is a dashboard run by FEMA that basically grants an agency access to emergency alerting tools, which, emergency broadcast system, your cellular wireless emergency alerts, and other avenues of streaming stuff, different avenues they've come up with to push out presidential emergency alerts, and also ones from state and local governments. So the reminder is that once you get a certificate with FEMA to operate into the IPAWS dashboard and activate alerts, you have to maintain your certification, and you also have to do monthly testing. And you have to successfully send in a test alert monthly. Or and if you don't do it 3 months in a row, you're suspended until, it's figured out and the agreement is made to do the testing as required. There's several entities in New York that have not conducted their testing for the requirements and are we're reminding basically, pay attention to this. It's very important. This alerting functionality is operational. We ask that meet the testing requirements so that we don't lose certifications out there. There is backup, agencies that can do alerts. It's not like there's, not going to be able to be done. There's plenty of backup systems in place. However, it's very important we keep the alerting program as fast as, and the agencies to directly do them as the fastest way possible. Any questions? Right. State Agency Communications Working Group. Working group met several times in recent months. We've discussed the status of current agency, radio infrastructure, identify opportunities for interagency projects where, different state agencies are working to either replace or improve their communication systems. And basically just coordinated dialogue between agencies and put out a just kind of a matrix of the status of where the agencies are in terms of their systems, what they're using, the footprint of their use. They have statewide, or are they
I have a question. Is anybody here from around Fort Drum? Does the county, and I'll tell you why I'm asking this, West Point wants us to take over their comms, their dispatch, emergency services dispatch. And it seems like it's a nationwide program because they don't want to have to train MPs and then they transfer and, dispatch become kind of a career unto itself now. It's not like back in the day when you answered the phone and you sent the car. So I was just curious if that's happening at Fort Drum or anywhere else around the state where it's a federal facility that has its own fire. I mean, West Point has its own hospital. They have the MPs, but we're going to be taking over their comms.
The one at West Point, my understanding is, I did a little bit of research into this thing. They're not anymore a full-fledged in terms of trunk lines and all that, right? They do the dispatch from internal calls and so on.
I mean, we answer their 911 calls.
Right.
And they, they're part of our mutual aid system. We frequently send resources in there.
You're going to take over the radio dispatch as well as
all of their, with the exception right now, VMS, because they currently have EMSs run out of the hospital, but that's probably going to become ours also. So, I mean, it's good for us. It'll get them on our radio system because we interact with them anyway. We just had graduation there. It's a large event, but it seemed to me that this was something coming down from DC.
It is. The Division of Military Affairs actually involved at the National Association of State 911 Administrators. That we always have representation, a member of Division of Military Affairs, as well as some of the armed forces themselves have representation. The Marine Corps does. It's had someone there all the time. And they have had ongoing projects where they have more PSAPs than any state in the U.S. You think about the U.S. military, just in the continental U.S. alone, not including outside, there's over 1,000 PSAPs. Military facilities.
And they're going to pay us because they're not, they don't pay taxes in Orange County. We normally wouldn't to take over dispatch or anything for a village or a town unless it was a really large one like Newburgh has talked about it, but that would require some additional personnel. But
they're trying to coordinate the, like, improving the communications and moving to next gen with the states that those things reside in, because they're part of those communities. And they don't, in North Carolina was the first test, or I believe it's, which is Big Fort down there. Army Fort. Fort Bragg. Yeah, Fort Bragg. That's, was the first one to be, he actually consolidated their PSAP with the county testing. So that was actually a successful thing from everything I've heard, both North Carolina's administrator and Terry seemed happy with it. The Division of Military Affairs is kind of coordinating it so that there isn't a different type of program in all the different branches of the military.
Yeah,
But so you're probably seeing that.
Yeah, and we were really just, we came up with a number. We're like, well, it'll be an extra dispatcher and, we just, 300,000. Like, okay. Like, there was no real direction on it, and it makes sense from their point of view because they don't have to keep training people every 2 years.
Right.
And our resources are, on that end, our new radio system and everything is superior to what they have.
Fort Drum has a real, a full PSAP. They have trunks, 911 trunks from the selective routers and everything. We have confirmed that with Jefferson County and with the Division of Military Affairs.
That would be a big lift.
That one, I haven't heard of anything, but I can't say there isn't any.
That would have probably a much larger impact on Jefferson. West Point, from our perspective, is a lot of crime there, a lot of police calls. It's a pretty controlled atmosphere. So just large events. They have Mikey Stadium.
As far as Fort Drum goes, Joe Plummer, he's the emergency manager up there. I know he deals with them all the time, and it's the same thing they deal with the reservation. They have, again, the reservation has their own fire, their own law enforcement stuff. So either him or Rick Akey or Franklin, they could give you some good information if you're.
Yeah, I just want to see if anybody else has gone through it. Like I said, Drum would be probably a much bigger lift.
Yeah, if you have any questions, I have contacts with Military Affairs and with the Army and some of the branches for the.
Good and bad news is our law department's involved, so it's not going to happen because they're a mess. But so we'll see how far that goes.
All right. So okay. So anyways, we basically reported out, and the agencies are working amongst each other as needed and so on. With continue to keep an eye on it, assist in ideas or research as necessary to kind of put the information together. Any other?
Regarding that, do you see state agencies moving more onto local systems or connecting to them?
In some areas, there's agencies that work, similar to local governments, but, work in, say, an entire county. There's agencies that work the entire state. State police, for example, they are covered every corner of the state. So they operate, they happen to operate their comms. I don't want to speak to the lieutenant too much, but they operate as a regional basis troops. Okay. Another state agency like DC, they do a lot of their dispatch centralized, some of it down to the region. So there's a little bit of different aspects of the actual operations, and that's usually for good reason. Some of the agencies have, I'll call them islands of radio systems, like SUNY or DOCS with the prison system. They have systems for each facility, but it's not one big statewide system. So there's a number of them, courts, so on and so forth. So it is, the idea of this was just to identify the types of systems, the areas, take a kind of a broader look at it than each agency looking only at themselves. And just see what gaps there are, what unmet needs, and where they're all at. And if they want any other assistance or coordination or ideas or anything, we're there to help. But we're not going to tell either any of these agencies what
The reason I asked, I just
that's a level higher than
state highway in our county. We don't have any direct communication with them other than by phone to their regional center in Rochester. And I didn't know if other counties, using them as an example, do they talk with the other local highway departments, or are they Is it more important that they talk with the other
Yeah.
residencies within their region?
It's up to policy within the county and what they see as the needs of interoperability. Interoperability doesn't always mean you want every snowplow to be able to talk to every police car and every fire truck. Imagine what that would be like.
No.
So you got to kind of control those things. Usually it's a command staff thing and I know with DOT talking to them in this group, they have maintenance supervisors in each region that cover mostly the big incidents and emergency managers, and they have set up with many of the counties an ability to communicate on whatever system the county has within policy. And they.
Yeah, I can tell you when we built out our system, we thought we were gonna have a lot of headroom on it. When Motorola built out the system, and the idea was to take the load off of the municipalities, all of their radio and communication costs. So we did that for fire, police, and EMS. And we really thought we were gonna be able to give the towns a channel for their snow plows and their DPWs and stuff, but I don't think so at this point. When we looked at really how much uses, the talk groups, how much they're being used and how much headroom is on the system, I don't think we're gonna go in that direction at this point. So we really thought, when you're dealing with salesmen, right? Sky's the limit. You'll use 25% of the system. But really, when you get out there and you see the usage on a lot of things, now that doesn't mean we can't look at like our sheriff's SOG people, like we need 5 tactical channels. Well, what's the usage on those? When you really look at it, they're not using those. So you could probably move those talk groups around, but we thought we'd be able to take that burden completely off the municipalities because they all still have radios now on their snow plows and the water departments, and it's not on our system. And they pay for.
My county, we have a trunked 800 system. So law enforcement, fire, EMS, highways, everybody is on our system.
Yeah.
But one of the agencies that is not is our state DOT.
And the troopers are on us.
Yeah.
State police are on our system. I didn't know if that was.
DOT is on their system is low band.
Yeah.
It is. And think about it, they don't, as far as I know, they don't have a need and haven't issued portable radios to every DOT worker. They don't have that need. They have mobile radio coverage, pretty much is what they need. Vehicles to be able to get a hold of if there's an emergency or to report their status or whatever. So low band is not that bad for mobile coverage. It's not the greatest thing for portable coverage in today's standards. But it's definitely not a bad because you need a lot fewer towers to cover a big area with low band, and nobody's on it anymore. So you got a lot of room. Anyways, Bob has been active in the group talking, and I'm sure he'll work with other agencies and look at the needs. And they're certainly looking too at what their best answer is as far as future systems. But to get back to your original question, a number of the counties do, I can speak to that, have arrangements with a number of the counties to share communications with them.
Yeah, we're, same boat as the other state agencies trying to keep up. So it's just a matter of, we do the MOUs with the counties, we try to get the end user equipment so that we can be on those systems. Inherently, we don't have 700-800 portables to hand out as they come on. So as we're notified, we're making arrangements to buy equipment at that point. Same thing we do with DOT. I mean, we have the consolidated centers with TMCs, but to Brett's point, DOT's operating mostly on low band, and they're really only talking to the regionals. They don't talk to the individual trucks. They let the regional supervisors handle that. We've even set them up so that they're on our state frequency in our car to car. So they have that option as well. It's the same boat where they intentionally, by design, they go back to coordinators. They don't get that.
You can see it works. A lot of them work kind of a regional basis. Good reason. Yeah, work with the counties, but they also have their own operations. The county may not want them delivered daily. Depends on the type system. All right. Other questions here? All right. Okay, now I am Bill Cow. Bill is doing interviews this morning for our intern. Every year we have one or two interns, college interns that are here to working on either an emergency management or something related to emergency communications, cyber, whatever, and they spend time with us working on those interviews. So I've covered his report. I think I'll get up for this one. Be able to read the slides for me. So these charts, most of you are familiar with. Kind of gives you the status from inception of these grant programs. For the SICG formula grant, you can see the red ones are the ones original, beginning ones, and those are the ones that are closed. The rest of them are still open if it has some extensions or whatever requests for particular counties. And you can see where they are in terms of the amount reimbursed out of the total appropriation of that grant. So you can see here a 90 million for 2021. This was the latest program that we're working, and this goes out through 2024. This was done to catch up the program during the pandemic. Some of the grant stuff fell a little bit behind. And our goal has been, and we've been working tirelessly thanks to our grants unit, thanks to all the people that have been involved, and also to the counties in getting these things worked out so we can do it. And what we're doing is doubling up the appropriation, doing 2 cycles to catch it up. We do strictly review extension requests. We don't just, rubber stamp them, and we're getting more and more because it's really, we have a lot of money out there in the street, and it's sometimes tough to get money justified and so on. So much unspent from 5 years ago. I just encourage you. I know that many of these projects, especially in this area, are big projects. Building communication systems is a big thing. It takes a lot of land acquisition, it takes a frequency coordination and licensing. It takes a lot of coordination and time. However, get the grant, you got to get the people, that you need to coordinate the project and meet the timelines as much as possible. That's all we can ask.
I got a question on that last year. So in 2018, there were 6 counties selected for that targeted grant cycle. But it was executed in 2021, so there was a 3-year delay. And the reason why I bring this up, there were a couple of counties, including Ulster County, that during that 3-year period, there was no applications accepted or appropriations for 2021 and 22, which makes them ineligible for the 22 and 23 application requirements because you have to have a 50% reimbursement. How do we come up with that 50% number? And is there a way they can get, because the money wasn't spent, let's say it was 1.8 million for a $6 million grant, and they're not at 50%, but at 25%, but that automatically makes them ineligible for the other grants in this particular round. So how do we come up with that 50%, and is that adjustable?
That was a decision between the grants office, the administration, and ourselves based on, you just look at you've got 62 counties, 57 in the city, right? Applying for these things, are eligible to apply every year. Okay, now we did have a couple of years without, that's why, again, we doubled up grants. That's why we had money left over from the 18 is why we rolled out in 2021, they rolled out the rest of that money. Then this cycle is basically a couple of years combined to catch this up. And so it's bigger awards, but you've got that many entities now. Only about 10 have received these grants since this inception in 2018. So you've got 40 some counties out there trying to get grants, and many of them have very good justifiable projects that are going to get these national interop channels up So we have that footprint across the state at a desired level of 85 to 90% coverage. And it also will connect consortiums, connect counties, like ISSI connections or whatever to other counties, and make kind of the concept of the systems work. Now, the only reason I'm saying that, Sheriff, is it's hard to give a county 2 in a row if they haven't even spent even half of the one you just gave them. Okay, so now I know the timeline is pushed this close. However, it just means this year probably not going to, we just made a clean cut. So you wouldn't think you would be doing it.
Is there any break because of COVID and their ability to spend this money? I mean, it's hard to spend the money because they can't get the contractors to. Well, I mean, it wasn't appropriated for 3 years. There was a three-year delay. So it's kind of tough to spend all that because of the pandemic and that 3-year delay. And kind of those counties, and I know at least 2, feel like they're penalized because they didn't spend the money.
Right. But all the time we're going to have kept right a year after a year. If we had one every year, you'd have a year, every year that'd be rolling out. Our decision was it doesn't make sense to give a county a grant in year 2 if year 1 hasn't been spent down yet, and because there's X amount of money to spend. Okay, we can only give so many a year, maximum $6 million award, and you got 20 million. So how many grants is that? As few as only 3 or 4 counties a year getting a grant to give somebody 2 in a row, but that's all. That's all it is. We got a letter from the county executive officer yesterday, and there's no decision yet. So the answer to your question is we don't have it. We're going to review the letter. We're going to talk about it. I'm not making the decision alone. Okay. And we'll get back to the county executive.
The other county is Niagara.
Pardon?
The other county that has the same issue is Niagara.
Okay. Okay. Good to know. Director, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I just answered
it. Okay. So we're going to review that and answer the question. But for right now, with the rules, Okay. Okay. Council Callahan, is that pretty much right? Okay. The PSAP operations grant, this is, these are smaller grants, but they're for the 911 PSAP operations. They're done annually. We normally require them to be spent in the year. We made some exceptions to that due to the pandemic and the time it takes to spend. We made them 2-year rollouts. So we are at we have a lot of these now where we're right in the process. We received the RFAs, went out. We're calculating all the data, crunching the numbers, and going to have award announcements on the PSAP, the formula, and targeted. We're going to be rolling. And then we have a whole other year to roll right out behind it. Our goal is to get this caught up. So as soon as the state budget is approved in hopefully April of every year, as soon as possible after that, we will get the RFAs out for that year's system. So the counties hopefully will have an award number by the time they complete their budget process, which is usually runs from May to November, from at least the county I'm from. And the counties have always asked that they want to make the budget for next year. It's nice to know how much money they're going to have to work with. So we're doing everything we can to try to make that happen. But then, the state budget doesn't come till April. County budgets start in January, so you got to understand they're built in 4 months there. However, we can do a lot closer than we've ever been able to before, thanks to this administration, grants working with us, just ability to roll out multiple years or multiple grants at the same time. That's all. And the counties, in our feedback, was they'd rather have the grants on time and regular and the numbers they need even if they meant they had to do 2 applications within a short period of time, 2 weeks apart. I think it's working. I think we're getting, there's going to be a smoother rollout of this stuff. And I thank all the people and their ideas. Larissa is, I should report this because actually we haven't had a board meeting since, I see you're probably wondering where Larissa is. Larissa Getko has been our grant. She kind of has been from the inception. She was here at the beginning of OIC. She came from this wireless project, statewide wireless project, but she came to OIC and she basically has been the main grant lead in the office since the grants began in 2010. Office was formed, and I guess this program started in 14. Larissa has taken a promotion. She's still within our division. She is with the Office of Recovery and Finance. And she is deputy director, I believe, there. And she is doing very well and likes it. It's a good challenge for her. However, this is like her baby to her. And she's down here almost every day to check. She's helped mentor Phil McGow has taken on the grants, and we're also giving them assistance. It's not going to be one person. It's going to be a few. And we are working as a team through these latest grants. And I have something here to answer. Time for that.
Brett,
Just
remind me later.
Right?
yes.
Thanks, Kevin. And I got the box in the way too, Mark. But you fixed it. Put it back there for me. All right. So there we are. Please, get these things caught up on your end, and we're doing the same on our end. What can you now?
Put the mouse on in the middle of the presentation, Brett, and then it'll click or work again.
Good, right? Use the mouse. What?
The mouse. I got it.
I had the wrong mouse?
I got it.
Oh, that one. Thank you.
Okay, try it now.
To have you here, Mark. All right, targeted grant. Targeted is, again, for one period, we're in the middle of crunching numbers. That's if we can determine that will go out, and we have another year coming out right behind it. So that one we hope. Did add a objective in the targeted this time around, and that is the connection of more stronger in the, it's still the national interoperability channel. Repeaters is still a full objective of the program, but in addition, we've added the connection of counties to counties, the backhaul infrastructure of whether it's microwave fiber, whatever is needed to do that. It could be connecting cores between 2 different counties that have cores for P25 radio systems, connecting them so one could be the backup, and then for a region, it could be connecting consortiums, whatever. That's part of the systems objective. It's shared that is a change in an evolution of this program, and I think it's a good one. Any questions on the targeted or the PSAP or the formula? Right. Get all these numbers memorized. It'll be a test in 20 minutes. And I just said what, backhaul is the one with the national has been added in the objectives. Also tactical channels. Covered that one. Over 629 million has been rolled out since the inception of the program. I do want to thank Phil for stepping up and taking on this challenge. It's not an easy one. It's really got him busy and awake at night a little too much, I think. And the counties for being patient working. Any questions on that? It's enough, right? Okay. Old business. Have any old business? Jerry, you're pretty old business. I apologize. You've been here the whole time. No. I don't. You snuck in, didn't you? All right. Sorry. If he was sitting here the whole time and I did that, I'm very embarrassed. Wouldn't have surprised me. However, Jerry, go back to your report, right? You want to give it? I already half gave it, but I think they should hear from you. How are we doing on time, Joanne? Okay. You didn't look out. Whoops. What are we doing here? Okay. Are there? Mark's long report. That pretty slide I made for you. So, we'd all like to hear from Jerry Engstrom, co-chair of the GIS Subcommittee. Now, we have a total of 30 seconds.
Okay.
Right now.
Not a lot to report. The GIS Subcommittee is meeting. We've still been meeting monthly. New York City and the GPO have been co-chairing. We have some new members from some other counties that have joined in. We continue to stay apprised of new technology, new requirements from the federal government, especially elevation requirements of 911 calls. So height in a building. One of the main things that we've been working on all along is to get our shared GIS editing environment stood up to build our statewide PSAP boundaries layer for Next Gen 911. That has been approved in concept by ITS now, all the way up to the CTO. So we have gone through an engineering intake with Chief Operations Office. So we are on our way. We have not selected either, it'll be cloud-based. We haven't selected Amazon or Google yet. We've somewhat pit the two of them against each other to try and get the best deal. So we're letting them duke it out. ITS is letting them duke it out. An initial cost estimate from Google came in much too high. So we went back and revisited and brought Amazon to the table. So we don't have that finalized yet, but the ITS side of the house is being worked on as we speak. So they are building the proposed platform or designing the proposed platform. It's just a matter of time when either Amazon or Google is selected, and that's just where the application will be housed on their cloud. So this will live out in the cloud. That works sometimes, but the two vendors are the top tier vendors in the cloud world, obviously. So that will give all the participants, theoretically, any county that wants to join in, to be able to have an editing environment where we can all work in the same place and at the same time on our PSAP boundaries. Because while we all probably have a PSAP boundary, if you throw them all together in a map, there are going to be significant challenges. There will be gaps, overlaps, things of that nature. That does not work well with CAD. It does not work well with Next Gen 911. There can't be any gaps, overlaps, undershoots, overshoots. It has to be perfect matches all the way around, because that's what's going to determine where a call gets sent. So Once the environment's stood up, everybody puts their data in. It's kind of like the throw it on the wall and see what sticks approach. And then that's when the real work begins, where each county starts talking to their adjacent county and hashing out the details of who covers what. So that's the big news that we have. And probably by the next meeting, I hope I have something. I hope we have at least a concept, something in a conceptual stage stood up, possibility. So we are working pretty hard towards that. But in the meantime, we have still met all through the pandemic. We never dropped the meetings, and we've stayed in touch with each other, each of the counties that's involved. New York City's been a big help, actually, because they are ahead of the state. So we've got a couple of people that contribute to New York City. Very helpful. Giving the rest of us, both the state and the counties, some direction as to what we need to really pay attention to, kind of the can't think of the term of it. But look back, what went wrong what went right. So it gives us the opportunity to really advance in that particular.
It's good, the network of information, to have this many people working together is exciting. Even the working group itself, when it was very active in providing input towards the original concept planning and so on, working with us in NICE-Tech. And Mike, thank you for being here. But working together to provide input towards the planning documents is a very, very important process. So this concept is built from the ground up. I'll say from the PSAP up, not from top down. And it's designed to work. So whatever solution is chosen for a state system, whether it's done regionally or statewide, it's done considering the operations of different types of agencies that are responding. With 988 coming in this year, adding is almost a fourth first response entity. I see it as a mental health. There's many local communities now that have been response task forces. It's coming, and how they're going to be sending calls, referring them over to 988 and back and forth from 911, 988, coordinating response, whether or not the call that requires a law enforcement or emergency medical response, accurate determination of that, the proper management of the calls, so on and so forth. It's very welcome on one side to improve this treat community state. It's also a makes things just a little more complex again. It's good to have it all. We are a lot of people working with that as well. So a lot of coordination, a lot of stakeholder involvement going on behind the scenes with all these. I think everybody does that, working as a subject matter expert or just learning as we're all learning. And it's a moving target. It's a dynamic situation because stuff's changes happening every day, it seems, in this stuff. Comments, questions? Thank you, Jerry, for that report. You didn't go as long as I did, John. No, you guys are doing a good job, and thank you for your chairing it. Is there any other old business or current business for the board today? I'd move on to Symposium feedback. I guess that's under currents. Sorry. Symposium, we feel went well as far as our staff. Thank you all that participated. It's still a challenging time out there. This thing just doesn't seem, it's like a bad relative, doesn't go away.
We got monkeypox now. So.
Pardon?
We'll
Oh,
move
yeah.
right into monkeypox season.
We did a survey and went into station crunching numbers too. And she's, Joanne, you want to say what you saw so far in the flash before your eyes?
Well, flashing before my eyes is about 95% have responded to the survey so far. Almost all of it is very positive. Networking seems to be the number one aspect that everybody gets excited about and really enjoys at the symposium. So we will do a joint conference again in the spring. And we've got some good topics that were suggested. You got a year to work on that.
Hey, everybody, it was the first time in person we did this coordination with 914. It was proposed 3 years ago, but again, got set back. They were excellent to work with. Mark, well, as Kelly before Mark as president. We worked with them in the planning for a couple of years. Mark stepped up as president, moved up to president this year. Did a good job, it seems. He did a good job with the conference. It was in Niagara County. He had the local contact with the hotel, was familiar with it. But it seemed to go very, I thought it went well. They they pretty much put together the agenda for Wednesday at noon, Wednesday morning till Thursday at noon. And it was their part of the agenda for the program side. And, you know, I think overall the information was good and feedback back and forth was good. So, first in person, thank everybody that came, people that presented. Start planning next year. Any new business? Am I missing anything, Joanne? Mark? So we'll talk about the next meeting. It'll be August 3rd. Same date last year, right, Joanne? August 3rd, wasn't it?
4th or the 2nd. Depends on whether we
Day before
we shifted on to the Wednesday.
Yeah. All right. We'd like to, if you would, Director Soretto, if you could, just stick around for a few minutes. We could meet with you. Welcome again aboard. I do want to, before we adjourn, first of all, I want to back remiss. I want to thank Larissa for all her time in the grants and years. I'd like to do something more formal from the board at a subsequent meeting. Thank Larissa for her contributions to this program over the years. Service to IC and public safety communications. She was also chair of one of the regional 800, RDCs, whatever they call them, 800 meg and 700 systems. And she was vice chair, I think, or something, a technical chair of one of the others. So she had to step down from those positions and those regional boards or she's needed in recovery. They certainly have platform and incidents that occurred in this state. They needed her skills. That's all we needed to lose her. We're glad she can help there, and she's not that far away. I want to thank her. I also want to have a moment of silence for the victims of the senseless domestic terrorism that occurred in the city of Buffalo. Our hearts go out in prayers to the families, the public safety agencies that had to respond and have to deal with that for the rest of their lives, and the communities that have to recover, both in Buffalo and last night in Texas. Senseless. Let's have a moment of silence. Also, Director, spread out condolences to your agency of the loss of a telecommunicator, senseless violent act. Bad time for that, middle of all this other stuff. It's a bad time anytime. Condolences to your agency.
Rough year so far.
Would like to put together I don't want to lose track of the public safety communicators that we lost due to either COVID or other circumstances. Start doing the kind of duties a little harder to do in this type of a world than fire EMS. So at the same for doing that, the people that are active in their positions, and they passed, I'd like to try to start keeping track of that. We have it from the beginning of COVID. We kind of did a little recognition of that this year at the symposium. The 911 coordinators did it. So in assisting them, I think they'll take this on. There's also a national list started of dispatch personnel lost to COVID, and a half dozen or so, at least in the state. If you take technical personnel that work to support that, like our own radio engineer we lost to COVID, December, Gil Sayaz, is something we shouldn't forget of. But your agency is really, having lost a dispatcher in that several years ago, shooting incident with the firefighters. That's up in Webster, West Webster. You guys have had it run, but thoughts go out to you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we will adjourn. And, or do I have a motion to adjourn? It says supposed to be a motion.
Second emotion, Brett.
We have a second. Thank you all for attending, your attention. Hopefully next time I won't be reporting for everybody. You'll have different voices, all right? But thank you, Mark, for coming and hearing yours. So others have participated. But yes.